Hello everyone, Chris Coyier here. We are talking about scope in CSS, particularly in this video, the @scope rule. It's an @rule in CSS, it has the symbol, has pretty good support already, waiting on Firefox, but it's under a flag and it's in Interop 2025. So by late 2025, we kind of expect it to be in all browsers. It's a pretty niche thing. You don't have to watch these videos in order, but we talked about a niche feature of it called donut scope. In the last video, we're going to talk about something called proximity scope in this video. And then we'll talk about one more feature it has in a next video. So it's a pretty interesting concept, and I want to just do a little live coding with you so that we can understand what's going on. So we have this really basic website here. It just has kind of a main content area with some content in a footer down here. Cool. And we're going to talk about light mode and dark mode, and one of the many ways that you could implement light mode and dark mode. And that way is with classes. So let's say we have some classes that represent light mode and dark mode. And when you apply them to the HTML, that area goes into that mode. So I don't know, a decently complex web app might take that approach where it's not necessarily the entire page that has a mode, or it could be, but sub areas or different areas might have it. So in this particular design, let's imagine that we want a light mode for the entire website, but the footer, we're going to flip it out and go dark mode. So let's get our classes ready for it. I keep saying mode, but let's call it theme. Theme seems to make a little more sense to me usually. So let's go theme. Well, there's a theme light mode, and theme light mode is background white and color black, of course. Great. And then there's theme dark, and theme dark is the opposite. So it has background black and color white. So that's fine, right? And let's say, well, the entire website, so our body, that's going to be in class equals theme light. And it looks like I already left that in place below here as I was prepping. The footer has a class of theme dark on it. So the most of the website has light mode, but the footer flops out for dark mode. I think that's a pretty reasonable and normal thing to do. But we don't like the links. Look at those links. Terrible. Really dark blue color on black is not very visible. So we want kind of a lighter color for the links. I could pop into the color picker here on CodePen, pick a relatively light color for those links, and that's going to look a lot better in the footer, I hope. And then this is the default kind of visited link color there. We want, because it's on white, we want a different blue. We want a relatively dark blue in theme light. So we'll say color is that here. And just by, they almost look like the same color view. You can tell this one's a little darker than those are, but by, a little trick of the eye or whatever, they almost look the same, and they look good on their respective backgrounds. Which is kind of fine, right? But what's interesting here is that the source order really matters a bunch. So if I take theme dark and put it first, what's going to happen there is that these are going to have the darker color on them, which is not what we want. Now, what is going on there? Well, it's like if we look at the HTML and thinking about it a little bit, these links in the footer are certainly a child or a descendant of theme dark, but they're also a descendant of theme light. Like both of those selectors match. Theme dark A matches those links, and theme light A matches those. So which one is applying here? Well, theme light is the one that's winning here in applying its color, even though it might make more sense to us to be like, hey, look, these links they're in a footer, and the footer has theme dark on them. Why is the theme light winning? It's because they have the same specificity. It's like these, because we're using nest in here, but it's like theme dark A is the selector that we're working with here, and it matches, and dot theme light A matches as well, and light is coming after dark. They both apply, but one of them is later in the CSS. So the source order, as it's called, is winning for theme light. So we just have this problem. It's very strange. So if we think about like, how can proximity help? Is it absolutely can help here? Proximity is like, how close is the next relevant selector. So let's see what I mean by that. I have this blog post here talking about this, and it goes through it, but this is a pretty good concept of it here that we can look at. This is a diagram created by Bramis Van Dam on the Chrome developers blog, and it's talking about the strength, essentially, of different ways to style things. Like a really strong way is the styling that you apply in CSS via just regular CSS that you're writing, which has layered styles and all this. But let's focus on the bottom of it, which is the specificity. A higher specificity selector, like an ID selector in CSS, is pretty strong, will beat out a class selector. Now that's, of course, still in there. That's how CSS works. That's how we've been writing CSS forever. But let's say two matching things have the same specificity, which is what we just looked at. That's what's going on there. Then the order of appearance is going to work. But there's this new thing called scope proximity that's in the middle. So scope beats order of appearance, but is less than specificity still. It slots right between these two things. So we can take advantage of scope. And I know we haven't looked at exactly what scope means yet, but there's a special syntax for it. And I'm going to use the syntax right now. At scope, theme dark. And we're just passing in that selector there. At scope, theme light. So we've changed it. It's not going to change how it styles, but it is all of a sudden a little bit of a different, like this diagram is going to take it, like, because these selectors are still the same, they have the same specificity, but the order here is not going to matter as much now, is the point. So if I use Web Inspector and look at these links now, the color that's going to apply is the theme dark one, not the theme light one. You see, this is higher up and this is getting applied now. It's not the reverse like we'd expect with source order. You'd expect theme light to win, but now theme dark is winning. Why is that? It's because the scope of theme dark is higher. These links that are reflecting in this footer, the closer class, the one with the higher proximity, is theme dark. It's a closer class. Yes, they are still theme light links too. That does still apply to them. And if the specificity got higher for theme light, it would still win. But because they're the same specificity, but dark has a higher proximity, it wins. So that's basically the deal of it. And it can make the styles that you're writing like a little bit more logical. I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking that like theme dark should win here because this class is like closer. It seems to make some logical sense, even though our source order was fighting against us here, which is interesting. In a way, one way to think about scope is, I mean, this, however you want to think about it is fine, but is that it makes source order matter less. So for example, if you had a class of card, great, and the images within that card are like width 100% or something, but you had a variation class called card big, and card big had images too, but you know, the width of those were only 50% because you set them off to the left or something. Then you had some HTML that had a class of both card and card big. Which one that, you know, if there's an image inside of it, what's going to happen? Well, the card class is going to beat card big. The image is going to be 100% wide, even though you're intending this to be a variation class and you want to override the image and make it 50% wide because the specificity is exactly the same here. We have that kind of problem with it. So it's one of those things where you're like, could I use scope to solve this? Think about it, figure it out. It may be a case in which you can have variation classes and not worry about which one is in which order, because it could be like card featured as well. And then it's going to matter like, which variation class came first in the CSS? How is that going to matter? Maybe I don't need to care if I apply scope properly. So that's kind of the concept of scope in CSS. Hopefully it's useful to you. Have that niche little thing in there. Probably not going to come up every single day of your life writing CSS, but CSS is better off for it, having little things like that that can fix little problems with us when we need it. So, okay, we'll look at one more little niche feature of using scope within style blocks in the DOM in the next video. Don't have to watch them in order, but can if you want. See you in the next one.